This is a Louie T Network exclusive.
Hey, either you're outside or you're
in the lab room.
Draft Zone.
What could it be? With me, your man, Louie T. Welcome. You are in the lab room, of course. I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me on the 2016 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series, where I aim to break down all 32 teams in the National Football League's 2016 NFL Draft using our baseball grading scale: single, double, triple, home run. There are no strikeouts here in the Draft Wrap-Up Series, so I cannot tell how these players are going to pan out, and I don't want to discount any of these young men before they get their chance in the National Football League. And so we will give each and every single player selected a score using that baseball grading scale. Add all of those scores up, divide by the number of picks, apply bonuses when necessary, which will then yield us a final overall grade for that team's draft. We'll move on to the next team in the process picked by you. That's right. You, the viewers out there, are in total control. It's the up format, the you pick format. You, the viewers, are in total control of who's next in this series by simply being the first, the absolute first, to leave a comment in the comment section of this and future videos in this series with two things in it: the phrase next and the team you'd like to see next. And I don't really care how you phrase it. You could go Bengals next, Cincinnati next, who they next. Look, as long as I know who you're talking about and the phrase is next is in that comment section, that team will be up next in the series. So it sounds simple, man. It really is. Actually, you know why it sounds simple? That's because it is, man. And so let's move on to the next team up in the series. And speaking of the Cincinnati Bengals, hey, what do you know? I told y'all, and before I jump into this, y'all better be Ben Hoff's best friend. I keep trying to tell y'all, man. Ben is hot right now. Every year somebody gets hot, and they're your new best friend, because they're the one that's going to probably get your team up for you. Their team's long gone. They've already gotten their team up. You need to go ahead and get next to that person and say, hey, look, man, I need your help. Last year it was Reby getting everybody's team up. This year it's Ben Hoff. I'm telling you, if you can't get to that trigger finger fast enough to be the first to leave a comment, you need to get with Ben, man. The dude is hot right now. And he got, not only did he get the Falcons up, he turned around and got the Bengals up. So look, at the end of the day, that's what you need to do. Find a way to be first. If not, get with Ben, man. He's usually first. So we're talking Cincinnati Bengals 2016 NFL Draft. And I've said this numerous times. Nobody does the draft quite like the Cincinnati Bengals. And I was talking to a loyal viewer of this show, my man T2 Brown Shoe. And me and him go back and forth all the time, especially when it regards the Cincinnati Bengals. And I told him, look, man, there's one time of the year I don't worry about the Cincinnati Bengals. It's this time of the year, because they always, and I mean always, say what you want about Mike Brown and company, they don't miss during this time of the year. This is the reason why Cincinnati is always in the playoffs. This is the reason why everyone always feels like they're underachieving. This is why they're among the most talented teams year in and year out in the league, oozing and dripping with depth and talented football players behind talented football players behind talented football players. Is because they don't miss this time of the year. They don't miss first round picks usually. You know, every now and again you get your guys that underachieve as first rounders, but they hit in the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth. They hit everywhere. And so this is why this team is always in the discussion when you're talking about some of the best teams in the AFC. The Cincinnati Bengals usually roll off your tongue after you run off about 3 or 4 teams, because they do not miss this time of the year. So I don't worry about that. I know they're going to take care of business during the draft. It's once the season gets kicked off and we get deep into the season, December, January, that's when I start worrying about this group. But right now, they did it again. They did it again. Let's jump into the 2016 NFL Draft of the Cincinnati Bengals. Who they? Let's jump into that draft. Now, first round, 24th overall selection. Houston cornerback William Jackson III is the pick. This was a funny story behind how this pick transpired. Everyone was under the assumption that Cincinnati was going to take a first-round wide receiver. I was among them. And it would have probably taken place. I think the Redskins pretty much threw a wrench in Cincinnati's plans. And it sent off a chain of events that really shaped the back end of the draft as well. And I was going to actually do a video that talked about the way that the back end of this draft was going to shape out. And like I said before, I'm not going to release it. I just felt like I had missed the boat on that. No one really wanted to hear about that at the time, so I didn't release it. But this is essentially what I said about the whole William Jackson III selection and how it all really transpired and how they ended up getting a cornerback in the first round. The Texans got antsy and called the Redskins up and traded themselves up one spot to 21, presumably to draft the highest remaining player on their board, Josh Doctson. Yeah, right. Okay. The Redskins knew they were going to take Will Fuller. That's why they moved back one spot, picked up the 6th round pick from 2017, and said, we're still getting our guy. This is a win-win situation for us. Texans got nervous. Other teams that needed receivers, that wanted receivers, were sitting right there that could have moved up. And just to ensure that they got the player they wanted, they traded up with the Redskins and got Will Fuller. Redskins get Josh Doctson. And the domino effect here is because the Redskins allowed the Texans to come up to 21 and select Will Fuller, and then turned around and select TCU wide receiver Josh Doctson at 22. The Vikings then selected the receiver that they wanted all along at 23 in Laquan Treadwell, Ole Miss wide receiver, leaving no first-round wide receivers for the Cincinnati Bengals to select at 24. Subsequently, the Cincinnati Bengals turned to their divisional rival in the Pittsburgh Steelers and say, if we can't get what we want, neither can you, and select William Jackson III, cornerback out of Houston, which was going to be the Steelers selection at number 25, hence forcing the Pittsburgh Steelers to then reach for University of Miami cornerback Artie Burns at 25, making him an unlikely first round pick. So it's no secret now how it all shook out and how the Steelers ended up having to reach for Artie Burns because they wanted William Jackson III, and Cincinnati said, well, we didn't get our guy. Guess what? You're not getting your guy if we couldn't get our guy. So everybody lost in the first round. Well, they didn't lose. They got a solid consolation prize here in William Jackson III. Probably the best combination of length, speed, and playmaking ability in this entire draft when you're talking about from the cornerback position is his technique, and is he as good a ball hawk as maybe Vernon Hargreaves III? Maybe not. But Vernon Hargreaves isn't 6'1", with the length, with the wingspan, the likes of which William Jackson III possesses. So is he as fast as Eli Apple? You damn right he is. Does Eli Apple possess his ball skills? No, he doesn't. So you probably get the best blend of speed, size, and ball skills and playmaking ability all rolled into one package at the cornerback position with William Jackson III. So you gotta love this pick for the Cincinnati Bengals. And really, I don't want to say they've underachieved at the cornerback position with first rounders. We've seen Drake Kirkpatrick. He's a sometimes-y guy for me. You know, every now and again, he'll show up like he did that one Monday night versus the Denver Broncos and pick Peyton Manning off, what was it, 2 or 3 times in that one game? But then he's so inconsistent. You really don't know what you're getting out of Drake Kirkpatrick from week to week. But he's solid. He's not terrible. Leon Hall, old, got to move on, okay? He's not going to be back most likely this year. You look at the guy that they drafted a couple of years ago out of Michigan State, and I looked at him and I said, first of all, I wasn't a huge fan of Darqueze Dennard when he was selected, first and foremost. Wasn't a huge fan then. I'm still not, and I'm waiting for him to get an opportunity to get on the field to see what he can do. Obviously, he hasn't really gotten a bunch of opportunities for a reason, so this is an opportunity for them to say, you know what? Maybe he wasn't worthy of our first round selection. Maybe he was, doesn't matter. We got a guy now that's worthy of a first round selection, and hopefully he'll fare better than the last 2 corners you took in the first round, because if he can come out and ball for you, this secondary is starting to take shape again because no more Reggie Nelson, so you're moving forward there. you're looking to really make this secondary young again. You know, you had Reggie Nelson back there. You had Hall still hanging on for years. Newman was back there. You finally moved on from him last year. And so now this is an opportunity. Pac-Man's still back there. So you're starting to try to change the guard in that secondary. This is a guy that's going to help you hopefully do that. Very talented, can go after the football, make some plays, very long. So even when he's out of the play, he's really not out of the play because of that length. So there's a lot that he brings to the table. Not going to break him down, obviously, because I've already done that in the Draft Prospects 101 series. But what I will say is this guy brings a level of playmaking ability that I think they lack currently at the cornerback position. And so this is a guy that can come in, possibly make some plays, and really help turn this secondary into a playmaking, ball-hawking type of secondary. I think they've got some pieces back there that can start having that kind of effect on the football game. And this is a guy that I think can help them kind of change the culture in that secondary from one that's a bend but don't break secondary into one that could potentially start making some plays and have quarterbacks be a little bit fearful of what they're going to find when they come testing some of these guys in that secondary. In the first round, 24th overall selection, Houston cornerback William Jackson III for me is a deep shot to left field. Way back, he's at the wall, it's gone, home run for the Cincinnati Bengals as they get on the board in the first round with a deep jack to left field. I love William Jackson III. He was a guy that I told people early in the process when he was a second or a third round projection. I said, watch this guy right here. He's gonna shoot up draft boards. And the combine for me was what solidified his status as a first round pick. I said, you don't run that fast at that size with the ball skills and the playmaking ability that he possesses, and you don't get out of the first round with that. So I knew as the process got closer and closer, as we got closer and closer to the draft, his name was going to keep sliding and moving on up draft boards until he became a first round pick. And that's exactly what happened. And let's see what happens and how he fares in the jungle in Cincinnati. You go to the second round, 55th pick overall. Pitt wide receiver Tyler Boyd is the selection. This was a big pickup for them because the assumption, and I talked about this in the first round with William Jackson III, the assumption was Cincinnati's going to get a receiver. And because of the way that the receiver board shook out in the first round with the three receivers that everybody looked at as first round picks going right in front of the Cincinnati Bengals, Corey Coleman gone already, and Josh Doxson, the one that I didn't think would go in front of them, went. And then, of course, Laquan Treadwell going to the Vikings. There was none left for the Cincinnati Bengals, so they had to wait until the second round, and they actually still got really good value now. What he lacks, we'll talk about a little bit later on, is what some of the other guys brought to the table. But this guy is every bit as good as those guys in his own right, just in a different way. Let's talk about it. 6'1", 197-pound frame for Tyler Boyd. Extremely strong hands as the first pro, and that's the first thing that's probably going to jump out at anybody that watches this guy play football. I mean, the first game that I watched, I forget the team it was that they were playing against. It was North Carolina, as a matter of fact. I turned on the North Carolina game. It was a big game late in the season. Both of these teams are like 7-1 going into this game. A lot riding on it in the ACC, and it's an early completion outside. It's just a simple out route, and it's an underthrown ball. He has to reach out. And what you'll find a lot of times with Tyler Boyd is that there won't be a lot of separation between he and the defender. That's just, you're not going to get that a lot of times with him, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But what he lacks in the ability to separate, he makes up with strong and tremendously strong hands. I mean, really, really strong mitts. When he gets his hands on the football, it's really hard to dislodge that football away from him. And the play that I'm talking about against North Carolina, he runs the out, the defender is there. He literally has his hand right there where the ball is, and Tyler Boyd reaches back and says, no you don't, man. Give me that. Literally takes the ball from the defender and snatches it and keeps it away from him. You know, a lot of times the tendency, and this is a good one to have as a receiver, is to once you get your hands on the football, bring it in and secure it. With Tyler Boyd, it's not necessary. It being out here in two hands is just as good as it being here cradled away in the safe pocket. And so this guy's hands are so strong that you can chop at his wrists and his arms, and a lot of times that ball doesn't move. I mean, his hands are ridiculously strong For a guy that's only a $197, you wouldn't expect his hands to be as strong, but he's got some Odell Beckham Jr. type strength in those hands. I don't know if his mitts are as big as Odell Beckham Jr.'s, but I'd say they have to be close for his hands to be as strong as they are catching the football. Smooth route runner. And the assumption everybody made, this is including myself, was that he was a really, really polished route runner, a guy that was going to break you off at the stem of a route. That's not what he's doing. He's not AJ Green. Not AJ Green. He's not AJ Green. AJ Green will break a dude off at the stem of a route. I mean, dude will go flying because he expected AJ to open up and take him deep on the 9 route, and AJ will break him off and come back to the football. He's got about 6-7 yards of separation. Catch the football, turn around, that defender's like 5 yards away. AJ's gonna give him a little shake and shimmy and get up the field to get another extra 6 or 7 yards on the play because he just broke him off with a beautiful route. AJ will get to the top of that post route, break him off outside, get back inside. All of a sudden that corner's turned around. He don't know if he's coming or going. AJ's already gone to the post, man. Don't even worry about it, dude. It's game over. That's not what it's not what Tyler Boyd is doing. Tyler Boyd he's a smooth route runner. What I mean by that, it's different than a guy that's gonna break you off. He doesn't waste motion. So if he's running a post, he's not doing all of this and he's not doing all of this. He's just gonna bend it here and he's just gonna go. He's not wasting any motion. He's not giving you any abbreviated step. He's not really trying to get you to get lost out in space. All he's looking to do is set you up, get leverage, and then get inside. So instead of him trying to break you off and get you to either turn your hips or turn around and lose steps and lose space, instead of him doing all of that, all he's looking to do is get leverage. All he's trying to do is win. He just wants to open you up, widen you up a little bit so that he can get inside. That's all he's looking to do, because he said, my hands will do the rest. Once I get my hands on the football, I'm good. I don't need you to be 3 yards away from me when I catch this, because I trust my hands enough that if I can just get on the inside, I just want to win to the inside. If the quarterback puts the ball where it needs to be, I'll do the rest. So he's not one of these gaudy route runners. He's not like, I thought he was Keenan Allen coming into the league, and that's my best comp for him is Keenan Allen. Look at him, I said, you look like Keenan Allen to me. But Keenan is breaking cats off. He's breaking fools off in these routes. That's not necessarily what Tyler Boyd is doing. He's not sticking his foot in the ground and breaking dudes off. He's just not wasting any steps. So it's clean, it's smooth, it's efficient, and it gets him to win a lot of times on these routes. Good body control. What you'll find with him is he does a good job of contorting his body to wherever the football is and extending his arms out. One time I saw him have to dive for a pass out in front of his frame. He controlled his body well to extend for the football and bring it in before he hit the ground. You'll see him go up in the air. There's one touchdown on a deep one that he's in the end zone. He's not a guy that's going to high point the football. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, but he's the guy that will go up and go and extend for the football here. He won't go up here for it, but he'll go here for it. And so he does a good job of controlling his body and winning at the point of catch and getting the football. So he does a really good job of controlling his body. He's versatile. That's another thing I like. They had him up in the backfield at Pitt. They would run jet sweeps with him. They would put him in the slot. He would play out wide. So you really didn't know where Tyler Boyd was going to be, because guess what? He was the only thing they had offensively. If you were going up against Pitt, because no James Conner this year, Terminator was out of commission. Remember, he was dealing with the cancer, and hopefully everything's going well with him. But they didn't have any other weapons offensively. No one else really scared you on that offense. So they had to find ways to free him up, whether it be put him in the backfield or you motion him and put him in the slot, you put him out wide. I mean, they did a number of things just to get the football in his hands. So he's a really versatile guy, which fits with what Cincinnati loves to do, because they used to be a team with, say, check, 1, 2, 1, 2. Guess who? Mohamed Sanu. They would motion him all over the place, jet sweep him. He would throw passes. They did a number of things with Mohamed Sanu, so he would be a great fit in Cincinnati, because they do a lot of different things with their wide receivers, especially the guys that are playing as the number 3 or number 2 wide receiver. They do a lot of different things with those guys in the offense. He can catch in traffic, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that he's just not separating. So when you don't separate, you get accustomed to catching the football in traffic with the guy draped all over you. That's his middle name. That's his calling card is, hey man, I got a dude all over my back. He's climbing over my back right now. He's swiping at the football. He's all on my shoulder. Doesn't matter. I'm going to still come down with the football. He catches the football in traffic very well. And that's a trait that will suit him well in the National Football League, because if you can't separate from college corners, these NFL boys are going to be all up your back looking to get rid of that football. So he's going to have to catch the football in traffic in the NFL. He will block. I saw this guy out there. He will compete. He will block at the point of attack with corners. So that's good to see. I mean, it's not like this guy's out there Laquan Treadwell and guys. He's not blowing dudes up, but he'll block, okay? And that's, again, a trait that I want to see from a receiver, because it's a mindset. Most receivers, they don't really care to block. So when you get ones that aren't afraid to mix it up and get their hands dirty, I'm all for it. He's one of those guys not afraid to mix it up and do his job out wide. Heavy collegiate production. This is a guy that came in, his freshman year was electrifying. It might have been his best year of his collegiate career, to be honest with you, because the guy was scoring from punt returns. He might even had a kickoff return for a touchdown. He scored about 2 or 3 rushing touchdowns that year. And then he had about 9 or 10 receiving touchdowns, and he had a bunch of catches, a bunch of yards. He was stellar in that freshman season. Sophomore year, he was okay. He wasn't great. But last year, his final season in his junior year, I thought he was really good for a guy that didn't have any help. At least he had help some of those other years. He had no help last season, and he still was able to get it done in his junior year. So big ups to him for producing at a very high rate when the other team knew he was the guy that they were trying to get the football to. And special teams value, he returned kickoffs, he can return punts. I don't think that's something you necessarily want him doing at the next level, but it's good to know that in a pinch, if you just need a guy, say your punt returner is struggling on the day, he's already muffed a punt and made some poor decisions on whether to fair catch, and maybe it's a windy day or something, it's good to know you got a short-handed guy like Tyler Boyd that you can put back there just to kind of ease the tension back there. Maybe your punt returner muffed one, and now he's got a little bit of indecisiveness as to what he wants to do, and you get a little nervous now as a coach. You don't want a guy back there that's indecisive on punt returns. And you say, okay, you get out of there. Tyler, you go back there. If you just fair catch everything, I'm fine. I just need a short-handed guy back there. He can do that. Or you can put him back there and say, hey, let's see if you can give us a shot in the arm. He's not a fast enough guy to me to be an effective punt returner or kickoff returner at the next level, but we'll see. I mean, to me, they've got too much speed on that team to put him back there to do this. So we'll see what happens anyway. But let's go to his cons. Not an explosive athlete. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. 4.5, 840 is what he ran, and that's right about what he plays at in terms of play speed. Now, if you give him the football quick in his hands immediately and he turns it up, he runs faster than a 4.58. I've seen him take a football and accelerate past some defenders. You don't get that very often now. You won't see him running that 4.52-ish that you can get out of him sometimes when he catches a hitch and gets a couple of blockers and he gets a full head of steam on. You'll really see it on these jet sweeps where he comes across the formation and he's already running at top speed and they just hand him the football and he doesn't have to break stride because his blockers have gotten out there and they've picked up the 2 guys and he just splits the seam and he just takes off. You'll see him get to top speed and you see the acceleration and the burst there. You don't see it very often with him, but those are the instances where you see it. But he's not an explosive guy. He's not going to be running past. This is where you're going to miss Marvin Jones, because Marvin Jones, everybody forgets, he was 6'2". A lot of people don't realize, and of course Cincinnati Bengals fans do, but a lot of people out there don't realize Marvin Jones was 6'2", and Marvin Jones was really fast. Marvin Jones was a sub 4.5 guy. So not only could he go up, get the football, which he did quite a bit in Cincinnati, and he was a guy that had a little bit of size, but he was also fast to take the top off the defense. You're not going to get that here with Tyler Boyd, but like I said before, what he lacks in the ability to separate and get behind the defense, he makes up with his strong hands and his ability to catch the football in traffic. He doesn't generate a lot of separation or make defenders miss. I've already harped on that. I don't really want to beat that horse. It's dead. It's been dead a long time ago. But I will say he won't make defenders miss. That's something else you want. There's no wiggle at all with Tyler Boyd. He's more so looking to run you over than he is looking to run around you. So if he catches the football and there's a defender right here breaking down, he's not going to give him a shimmy and a shake and try to, get him to freeze and run by him. He's just going to lower his shoulder and probably pick up an extra yard or 2, whether that guy escorts him out of bounds or he just, runs him over for an extra yard or two. If that guy can't tackle and he comes up and he's slipping, Tyler Boyd will run him over. Run him flat over and keep running. But if you wrap him up, he's going to go down. He's not a guy looking to get a whole bunch of yards after the catch. And the final con is he won't win many 50-50 balls. For as strong as his hands are, he's not a guy you just want to say, all right, Tyler, I'm going to throw this up. You go and make a play. You can do that with Marvin Jones. And Marvin will come down with the football for you. I don't think that's necessarily something you can do with Tyler Boyd on a consistent basis. Saw a lot of balls hit the ground that I thought he should have come down with when the quarterback would just say, hey, man, here's a 50-50. You go up and see if you can't make something happen. And of course, the defender is always there. So it's not like the defender isn't aware and doesn't know where the football is, because it's not like he's in a trail technique and he's afraid to look back for the football because he's panicking because Tyler Boyd has a step and a half on him. He's right there in the hip pocket. So when Tyler Boyd looks for the football, he's like, oh, okay, ball's coming. I'll look too. And so he's right there. And so he's able to get his hand in between Tyler Boyd and the football and knock it away. So you won't see him win a bunch of 50-50 balls. So that's also something that I'd like to see him improve upon at the next level, because with his hands as strong as they are, quarterback should be able to just say, hey man, here's a 50-50, go make something happen for me. And I don't see that a lot with Tyler Boyd. But in the second round, to get a receiver of his caliber, to complement a guy that is one of the best receivers in the league already, and it's A.J. Green, you gotta feel good about getting Tyler Boyd, pick wide receiver, in the second round with the 55th overall pick. To me, he's a triple. Really like what he brings to the table. I think he's going to be a really good number 2 receiver in this offense. A great compliment to AJ Green, and a guy that you can groom on the outside, but also move around. Put him in the slot. Have him run a couple of jet sweeps and do some things like that with him. And I think he'll be a really good asset to the Cincinnati Bengals and their offense moving forward. You go to the third round, 87th pick overall. Utah State linebacker Nick Vigil is the selection. 6'2", 239 pounds. Solid athlete with movement skills. This is the guy that ran a 4.72 at his pro day. So he can move around. He can pick him up and put him down. Really solid athlete. And this guy is such a far cry from the linebackers that they have in Cincinnati right now. I mean, he's a breath of fresh air when you talk about some of the guys that are knuckleheads. You know the one that I'm talking about in particular, but the guy's a hell of a football player. But he's a different breed when you look at Nick Vigil. He's a guy that isn't as tough as some of these other Cincinnati Bengals linebackers. He's not going to come down necessarily like a Burfict and boom and be a hammer, as much as he is going to be a guy that's going to run a little bit and flow to the football. So he's a little bit different from what the cookie cutter idea of a linebacker has been in Cincinnati, especially inside for this team. Gets to the football though. You know, I can say all of that and talk about this and that, but this guy gets to the football. At the end of the day, that's what it's all about. I don't really give a damn how you do it, as long as you do it. And he gets to the football very well. And I'll tell you the guy that I liken him to in this draft class a little bit later on, but he gets to the football, very instinctual. That's the next pro. His instincts, and I'll talk about this a little bit later on as well, his instincts make up sometimes for his lack of pure explosion and speed that he lacks, because 4.72 is good, it's not great in this league. Most guys can outrun an angle of a 4.72 linebacker, and so and I actually saw that on tape, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on, but his instincts make up for the fact that he's not a 4 or 5 guy, he's not a 4-4 guy. He's so instinctual, he sees it, he recognizes what's going on before it actually happens. So instead of him being reactionary, he can have instincts and go and be proactive instead of reactive, which allows him to play a lot faster than that 4.72 40 time would indicate. Takes good pursuit angles, and again, I talk about this all the time with linebackers, especially when you're lacking in the speed department. You can't afford to have a misstep. You can't afford to misdiagnose a play. You cannot afford to take bad angles. It is a no-no. You have 4.72 speed and you take a poor angle, you definitely will not catch that running back that's running a 4.5 240. You won't do it. So he takes really good angles to the football, which also helps him get to the football, which is what I talked about earlier on as a big pro for Nick Vigil. Tackling machine. You cannot be a tackling machine, and that's the next pro, unless you take good pursuit angles and you find a way to get to the football, which is all the things that I talked about. And I think the instincts also plays into that as well. This guy had 144 tackles last year for the Aggies of Utah State. This guy was all over the field. Him and his partner in crime, who also was drafted this year by the Green Bay Packers, and Kyler Fackrell. Those guys were all over the football field at Utah State, and they were one of the better linebacking corps in the entire college football landscape. And both of these guys were phenomenal. And to me, of the two, Fackrell was much more explosive, but this guy was the heart and soul of the defense. Relentless motor. I mean, this guy sideline to sideline, all over the place, flying around, trying to get to the ball carrier. Again, his motor, you don't worry about it. This isn't a guy you got to worry about, easing up on a play or not having, great backside pursuit or any of that stuff, man. This guy's going 100 miles an hour just about every single snap. He's an effective blitzer. I mean, you see it in one of those games. I want to say it was Colorado State, comes free off the edge. Nobody touches him. Hits the quarterback, ball comes out. Might have even been against Boise State. One of those games. I watched a couple of games with him in them, and he's a guy that can blitz effectively. He can get in the backfield. May not get to the quarterback, but he'll affect the play and blow things up. So he's an effective blitzer. Had about 3 or 4 sacks on the season, so he can do a little bit of everything. And so that's a part of the package that you get with Nick Vigil. He can drop into coverage, and that's something else that I thought he was really solid at. And sometimes, I can fall into the trap of saying, all right, you a white linebacker, probably not going to be that good in coverage, probably going to be a physical guy, try hard guy. No, this dude can actually drop into coverage, man. And so, again, another one of these added bonuses you get with Nick Vigil, that he can drop into coverage. He's smart. He sees what's going on a lot of times, which will allow him to make plays on the football, whether it's a deflection or in there to hit the player and dislodge the football at the last second, or even get his hands on it and pick it off. Very heady, knows his position, knows how to drop into his zones and key eyes on the quarterback. Versatile. This is a guy that played both running back and linebacker at Utah State. This was probably more of the case in 2014, where he was huge for them as a running back and as a linebacker. More of a linebacker in 2015 than a running back, but just the fact that versatility is there. He's got a little bit of ball skills. I'm not afraid if he's able to get the football on the defensive side of the football, not afraid to turn into a runner. So, and there's toughness in that as well. A guy that can take a hit but also dish it out. So there's some versatility here. And the fact that he was a running back lets you know he's also an athlete as well, much like a Miles Jack. So those are all things that should be appealing to the Cincinnati Bengals and their fan base with this guy here. He's a really good athlete, but you go to his cons, he can get caught up in a wash. And at 6'2", 239, it's not hard for you to take 1 or 2 bad steps and get caught in the wash and not be able to get out. And I talked about this watching another linebacker, the Giants linebacker, B.J. Goodson, watching some tape on him. He's a guy that will get trapped on the front side of plays in the mud. He'll get stuck in the mud, trapped in the wash, in the middle of the field, and he won't be able to get to his gap to fill it. And on a couple of big plays, he was a culprit. And that can also happen to Nick Vigil. He can be a guy that can get caught in the wash, not get to his proper assignment and fill his gap in time, which will open up some rushing lanes for running backs. He's not explosive at all, though. That's the final con. And I liken him to Blake Martinez, a 4th round selection of the Green Bay Packers out of Stanford. He's a guy that is a tackling machine. He's got a really good motor, similar size. I think he's like a 6'2", 237-pound linebacker. They look exactly the same in my mind. They play exactly the same. They run a similar 40. To me, they're splitting images of one another. Their games are highly similar. I think Martinez is a little bit better in man-to-man coverage and better in carrying out his zones and matching a guy man for man while he's in his zone. I think Martinez does a better job than Vigil does, but Nick Vigil is one of these guys that can take a proper angle, can do everything right and still be outran because he lacks those quick twitch fibers, that explosiveness that you need to drive through and get a guy. I saw guys outrun his angle and beat him up the sideline, and a safety have to come over and escort a guy out of bounds because Vigil just couldn't get there fast enough. So that's something that you'll get from him from time to time. But at the end of the day, this is a guy right here that I feel like is going to come in. He's going to contribute on special teams. He's going to help you on the defensive side of football. You can never have enough linebackers, and this Cincinnati Bengals team has proven that over the years, whether it's a guy like Vincent Ray coming in when injuries hit and really having a huge role for this team. You can never have enough linebackers. You never know when Vontaze Burfict is going to decide to get injured and miss 4 games. You never know when you're going to need a guy to step in and fill that void for you. And I think this is a guy in the 3rd round, and Nick Vigil, that may be able to do that for you down the line. 3rd round pick, 87th overall. A Utah State linebacker, Nick Vigil, for me, is a double. He's a solid linebacker. He doesn't really move the needle for me, but he's a really solid prospect that I think the Cincinnati Bengals targeted and said, hey, this is the guy that can help us right away, whether it be on special teams or on the defensive side of football. We feel good about him. We're going to take him now and coach him up and see what we can get out of him. And so that's him in a nutshell. You go to the 4th round, 122nd pick overall, Baylor defensive lineman, Big Bad Andrew Billings. My man, A.B. Top Billings is the selection. You know how I feel about this pick, man. And I'm not going to let anybody tell me and make me try to feel any differently than I felt about my man A.B. going into the draft. Top Billings for me was one of the top defensive linemen in this draft class. When I broke him down, I looked at him, I weighed the pros and cons. I understand this guy's not potentially a 3-down player in this league. I don't give a damn. I don't care. This guy's dominant. He's physical. And my thing was, why can't he be on the field on 3rd down? He can collapse the pocket if nothing else. I don't want this guy trying to finesse and be quick, which he is a quick guy. I told you, he ran a dude down in that Kansas game, like 35 yards down the field. He ran a running back down from behind. Now, running back had to elude a defender. I don't care. We're 35 yards down the field with a scat back. You got a 330-pound defensive lineman running a guy down from behind. That's insane. Anyway, back to the topic at hand. Andrew Billings for me is a phenomenal athlete. I think he can play all 3 downs, but even if you're not a big 3-down Andrew Billings supporter, fine, put him on the field on 1st and 2nd down. Let him be a menace up front. D'Amato Pekka is getting up there in age, and man, this is such a steal, man. This is highway robbery in the 4th round. And I think he's going to make some teams pay for this. I really think Andrew Billings is going to. And it was funny because watching the draft with you guys out there, we started making up excuses, and we all came to these crazy conclusions, and everybody was grasping at straws trying to figure out, why is this guy still around? I mean, one guy said, oh yeah, I think he's got an attitude problem. I think he's crazy. He's a head case. Somebody else said, oh, he had an injury that nobody knew about. Somebody else was like, oh yeah, I heard he didn't test out well in the interviews, and some teams were off put by things. None of these things were true. Everybody just said, oh yeah, he's a 2-down player. Oh yeah, he's 6'1" and he's small and all of these things. What? What? This guy's a freak. Anyway, in the 4th round, 122nd pick overall, Baylor defensive tackle, Andrew Billings for me. As you could imagine, it's hit hard. He's hit deep. You can put him on the board. Yes, a home run. In the 4th round, Cincinnati Bengals got a steal, man. What in the hell is going on? What the hell is going on out there? How the hell did they get their hands on this caliber of player at this point in the draft? Don't ask me. I don't know. But I expect this guy to wreak havoc on the AFC North and potentially all of the teams in the National Football League that let this guy pass by 3 consecutive rounds in a row. Go to the 5th round, 161st pick overall. Arizona State guard Christian Westerman is the selection, 6'3", 298 pounds. And this guy that's physical in the trenches. I watched him at Arizona State and I said, wow, okay. Because you hear 298 and you're saying, you would have been great in the 90s. I don't really know about nowadays, though. 298, little light in the trousers. Really don't know if he's going to be able to get it done. So I'm expecting him to get bull rush, is what I'm saying. Thought he's going to be a finesse guy that can get out on the edge and you can pull him out and he'll be a guy that'll lead the way and be an escort on screens and on pulling plays, trying to get to the edge, misdirection plays, counters, things of that nature. This guy's going to be your man because he's going to get out there, be athletic, run, be smooth, all of those things. Nope, that's not what I got. He wasn't that great of an athlete. They did pull him. I'll get to all of that later on, but what I got was a dude that was physical in the trenches, which was totally contrary to popular belief, or at least what I thought going into watching his tape. and I'm a guy that has preconceived notions of players before I watch them, just looking at the measurables. And you hear the outside. I try to block out the outside noise before I watch these tapes, but it's kind of hard because you hear these guys, these analysts talking about these players all draft process long. That's why I got to go watch it for myself. Because if you let these guys tell you what you're supposed to believe, you can really find yourself regurgitating all of the stuff that everybody else told you, and half of the time, to me, it's not even spot on. So I look at Westerman, and he's just physical in the trenches, man. Dude is a dog when it comes to blocking in the interior of the offensive line. Generates movement in the run game as the next pro. Again, for a 298-pound dude, this guy is fearless, man. He's in there, and he's moving bodies around. I'm not just talking double team moving dudes. I'm talking about taking the guy in front of him and creating a new line of scrimmage, 2-3 yards off the ball. I mean, really fighting with dudes and pushing them back and making them feel his presence in the interior of the offensive line. He's rock solid in pass pro, though. Don't get it twisted. Like, okay, well, he's gonna get bull rushed, and even if he's driving guys, back in the run game, he's gonna get bull rushed in the pass game and his pass sets. Not really happening. He does a really good job of anchoring down, moving the feet. I think his feet are really good. I'm gonna talk about that here in a second, but I think part of the reason why his pass pro is so good is because his sets are so good. His footwork is so good. He's really fundamentally sound, technically sound, and I think that really helps him in his pass pro. He finishes blocks. He's a nasty guy when it comes to finishing blocks, man. Saw a couple of times where he takes a dude, pile drives him on the ground, falls on top of him, little pancake with a little extra syrup on top. I said, okay, Christian, I see you, man. Man, a couple of times, dumping dudes on piles, running back, got 2 yards, everybody's there. He takes his dude and dumps him on the pile. Man, go ahead and add to the mix over there. Throw him on the pile and say, okay, he's the guy that finishes blocks, man. He's not just satisfied with opening up a hole, or he's not just satisfied with walling off a defender. I'm gonna get this dude on the ground and let him feel me, all right? He can also get to the second level, and he does a solid job. I didn't think he was great on the double team and then get out to the second level, but I thought he did a really good job of getting to the second level, whether it's pulling as a guard, releasing and getting out on the screen, or sometimes he'll just not have anybody to block, get to the second level, and get to that linebacker and be a kickout block. So I thought he did a really good job of getting to the second level. Solid lateral movement, and a lot of times they would pull him at Arizona State, and he had some really good, for a guy that wasn't, to me, a tremendous athlete. I didn't really think he moved fast enough when he got out there. But those first 3 steps or so, that lateral quickness to get out of his stance and get into him pulling, they were tremendous. And you see that sometimes when he gets beaten, he rebounds very well, which I have as another pro, so I'll go ahead and mention it now. Recovers well. He'll get beat initially off the snap, but his lateral quickness is so good that he'll find a way to get into the play, recover at the last minute, and push the guy. Just give him a little shove, which will give the quarterback enough of a pocket to just step up in, slide up a little bit. So even his lateral quickness shows through when he gets beaten, because he even has a chance to still get back into play and recover when he's beaten. So really like his lateral quickness. And I think that's something that benefits him well, even when he does get beaten on a play. And the good footwork. I talked about it earlier, referenced it earlier. I think his footwork is phenomenal, because there are a lot of plays where he's not blocking anybody. He's just here, and the footwork is here. He's ready. He's bouncing on the balls of his feet. So if somebody comes with a good base, somebody comes and wants to kind of put a jolt into him, he's ready. He's ready, and he's ready to rock and roll. And so he's quick to go help somebody. All right, I ain't got nobody to block. I'm going to go help this tackle on this double team. Oh, I ain't got nobody to block. I'm going to go help the center here. So he does a really good job with footwork. I think it keeps him with a solid base, and then he's ready to go help when necessary. You go to his cons. Elite quickness will give him trouble. And my best example of that is watch the Mississippi State game. And this isn't fair. It's not fair. It's not fair to remind. I'm not going to go Atlantis on y'all, but it's not fair, okay? That Myles Garrett, they put him over the guard, okay? So they put Myles Garrett basically at a 3 tech. And we know who Myles Garrett is, Mississippi State defensive man. This guy's a freak. I mean, you watch him off the snap. Just go and watch Myles Garrett get off the snap a couple of times, and the explosion is stupid, okay? It's absolutely out of this world, okay? He's out of bounds, but they move him over on a 3rd down to defensive tackle over Christian Westerman, and it wasn't fair. It wasn't a fair fight, man. It was like putting an 8-year-old in a wrestling match with an 18-year-old. It wasn't fair, man. I'm like, come on, don't do that to Christian. He didn't deserve it. I mean, he blew right by Christian. He didn't even get out of his stance. He didn't have a chance. He hit the quarterback, almost caused them to throw an interception. It was bad, and they did it a couple of times, and every time Myles Garrett embarrassed Christian Westerman. So that lets me know elite quickness, and again, that's the elite of the elitist right there. You're not going to get that on every single snap. You're not going to get that from most guys walking around on this earth. So even at the next level where guys are supremely gifted athletes, you're not going to get that kind of quickness in front of him all the time. But just know that elite quickness will give him some trouble. Also, short arms. That's the last con. He's got short arms, and at 6'3", you can expect that. He's an interior player only, but I think he can play all three interior positions, and I should have added that as versatility because I think he can play both guards and center, which brings me to this final point. I think it's time for Russell Bodine to find the pond. How do y'all like that anecdote right there, man? And I think this is a guy you draft because you say, man, I'm tired of Russ Bodine getting bowled back into the lap of my quarterback. Damn, I'm hot right now, man. Cool me off. I'm hot with these rhymes and these melons I'm dropping on your gems, or these gems I'm dropping on your melon. I'm all over the place. But at the end of the day, his short arms does hurt him when guys with length get in front of him. I saw him in that same Mississippi State game give up some pressures. I saw him against USC give up some pressures just because of length. Guy got into his chest before Christian Westerman could get his hands on him. And so he's here. He can't really stop the carnage that's ensuing because he can't get his hands on the guy. Guy's got that leverage, that one arm, long arm of the law. Sticks that one arm pile driver out there. Started pushing him back. Christian Westerman couldn't do anything about it. So that's something to be alarmed about. But again, I didn't see it very often, okay? So I was really impressed with Christian Westerman. And I had heard that this is a guy that should have came off the board a lot sooner. I don't know how true that is, all right? But just looking at him play, I see why there was a consensus that this guy was supposed to be going, third round, worst case scenario, fourth round. You get him here in the fifth round. So I think this is really good value. But there are some deficiencies here that I got to see how it all works itself out. But still, in the fifth round, this is good value. 161st pick overall, Arizona State guard Christian Westerman is a double for me. Solid prospect, a guy that I think can play all three interior positions on the offensive line for you. We'll see what happens and what he's called to do. If they ask him to kick inside the center or if they just leave him at guard and let him develop there, we'll see. But the thing that always helps guys like him is that if you can do multiple things, it's going to help you stick on an NFL roster. And I think this guy can play 3 out of the 5 positions along the offensive line. You go to the 6th round, 199th pick overall. Ole Miss wide receiver Cody Core is the selection. I call him Coco. And 6'3", 205 pounds gives you a little bit of size here. This to me is more of your Mohamed Sanu replacement here. If Tyler Boyd was more of the replacement for Marvin Jones, here's your Mohamed Sanu replacement right here to me. Similar size. I think this guy actually has a better opportunity and chance to be an upgrade over Mohamed Sanu as a receiver when it's all said and done. Height, weight, speed specimen, what you get here in Cody Core at 6'3", 205. Guy runs a 4.47 40, and that's a straight line guy. He's not a guy that's going to make you miss. Not a lot of wiggle here, but in a straight line, he can pick him up and put him down. He's more of a build-up speed guy. He's not going to go from 0 to 60 like that. But what he will do is if you give him a chance to come off the line without being molested and he gets into his full stride, he's a strider, he can go and run right by a guy and leave him in his weight like he's standing flat-footed. So there is some straight line speed there. So he's definitely a height, weight, speed specimen. Solid hands. Saw him catch the football enough to make me feel comfortable that he can catch the football. There are some issues there with his hands. Sometimes we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But if you're talking about a guy that's pretty much dependable that will catch the football, hell, Mohamed Sanu was a guy that would drop the football. I think his hands are better than Sanu's if you want to compare the two. So I think that this is a guy with some solid hands that can come in and catch the football for you. Perseverance, though, this is something that you can't measure. You know what I mean? And a lot of times with these guys, you get them from college. The hardest part of the drafting process is getting to know these players because there are a lot of things that you just can't measure with these guys. Heart, toughness, dedication to the game. And one of the things that I really loved about Cody Core and his situation and his story was before his junior year, his mom passes away, man, which is tragic. And it wasn't like she had cancer and, you could try to mentally prepare yourself. This just happened out of nowhere. Mom was only 37 years old. She was very young, and just complications, and they weren't able to save her. And this guy's at school, doesn't even know what's going on. Dad tried to kind of shield him from it, and all of a sudden mom passes away. It's a really tough situation. A lot of people wouldn't be able to go on and play football after that, man. I mean, that's a really tough thing to have happen. That's a really devastating blow to someone in their life, especially when you're a young man in college. It's just tough to deal with. And this man went back, had one of the best seasons of his career, had a breakout year that junior season, and then followed it up with an even stronger campaign in his senior year. And I think you can start to see that he's got that mental toughness that you look for. He's got something that he's playing for that's a little extra. There's a higher calling for him, being that mom passed away, and there's an extra chip on his shoulder. So there's a mental toughness here that you can't measure that I love with Cody Core. And I think that that's something that's going to drive him and motivate him to be the best player that he could possibly be. He'll work for touches, man. He will work for touches as the next pro. And simply put, what that means is he'll block. He will block for touches. He will work for touches. You will see him out. And I think it's just something about that Ole Miss program where they just tell their receivers, look, you got to block. You want to be on the field, you're going to have to block. In the run game, for the screen game, you're going to have to block. Laquan Treadwell, probably one of the best run blocking wide receivers we've seen in quite some time. Cody Core blocks his tail off, okay, in the run game. So he will block. He's like, hey, look, man, if I go out here and block, you got to get me some touches, man. He will block for touches, so I love it. Want more of it. Yeah, he's a guy that will catch the football, and if you're not on him tight enough, he'll make you miss and get by you and get some yards after the catch. So a lot of his biggest plays, they weren't deep balls that he caught 50 yards down the field. It's a 7-yard slant that he catches and runs away from everybody. It's a 3-yard out that he catches, makes a guy miss, and gets 27 yards up the sideline. A lot of his biggest plays against Alabama, he catches a play where it's a breakdown in coverage. Quarterback looks like he's about to run. He's approaching the line of scrimmage. The corner comes up. Quarterback throws him the football. It's like a 60-yard touchdown. Nobody's there. He runs into the end zone. In the bowl game, his final collegiate game, he had a field day against Oklahoma State. But then again, who didn't have a field day? And a catch and run for Cody Core for a touchdown where he splits the seam and gets into the end zone. So these are things that he can do. And I think that might have even been against Boise State the first game in 2014. Either way, he's a catch and run guy, so he can get you some yards after the catch. There's some upside here, along with special teams value. Those are the last two pros. I think he's yet to fulfill his full talent. Okay, there's some untapped potential here with Cody Core, and I think if you work with Coco over some time, I think this is a guy that can give you a little bit more than what you're getting out of him right now. And there's some special teams value. He can go down, be a gunner, do all of those things. I told you he's physical, he'll block, so that should translate to a guy that will go down there and tackle as well. So I think if he can come in and play some special teams and really endure himself to the coaches from that aspect and come in, catch the football, be a quick study in what they're telling him to do, because there are some things he has to clean up. He can be a guy that can get on the field and impact this Cincinnati Bengals roster immediately in his rookie season. You go to his cons, he'll have concentration lapses. He'll drop the football. He'll go in, and you saw it in the Senior Bowl. Come out of a break, out of a comeback route, be open enough to catch football and just whoop, ball hit the ground. I mean, you'll see that from him from time to time, where you're like, come on, Cody, you got to catch the football. He'll have concentration lapses. It happens. He's one of those guys that will have concentration lapses. He needs to play faster. I think, and I'm going to lump this in with the last con because I think they kind of go hand in hand. Doesn't run great routes, and part of him not running great routes is that I think he needs to play a little bit faster. He's a little bit too smooth for me. Like in the Senior Bowl, he runs a comeback route, and the defender is right there on him because Cody Core didn't run hard enough to me to run him off to create that separation. This guy has legit speed, and that corner knows that. So if you want that guy to respect you, you come off that line like a banshee, a screaming banshee, like a bat out of hell. And you come off that line and you give the indication that you're about to run this 9 route. He's going to open up his hips, turn around. That's when you stick that foot in the ground, come back to the football. Well, he's kind of just leisurely going up the field, and it looks like you about to stop your round and come out of a break, and corner squatting on that, comes up, makes a play. He doesn't run great routes. And so I think he needs to play faster. All of those things to me go hand in hand. If he does one better, I think the other will naturally follow suit and he'll be better at both. So I'd like to see him increase his tempo a little bit, run better routes. I think that'll help him at the next level. But this is a great project. I feel like Cody Core, really unsung at Ole Miss. Guy that didn't get a lot of credit, did some really good things for them there. And he was just another one of the guys at Ole Miss. They got a bunch of big receivers that are like 6'3". It's like they just churn them out at Ole Miss. So he didn't stand out, but I think this is a really nice height, weight, speed specimen project at the end of your draft to take a flyer on that I think you can develop into a really solid football player for you in the 6th round, 199th pick overall. Ole Miss wide receiver Cody Core for me. Coco is a double. Really like what this guy has. He's got stuff you can't teach. You can't teach size, you can't teach speed, and you can't teach the things that this guy has. You just got to mold him now into the type of football player that you want him to be, and I think this is a nice project that you take in the 6th round. And you go to your final pick in the draft, 7th round, 245th selection overall. Illinois safety Clayton Fejedelem is the pick. 6'1", 200 pounds, athletic and explosive safety. This guy is a 4.53 40 guy, 40.5-inch vertical leap. So you're talking about pure explosion here. If you're talking about numbers from a combine perspective, he would have been one of the best in his group with those numbers. So this is a guy that's very explosive. I liken him to Miles Killebrew in that he's a physical built guy, very explosive, can run, can tackle, all of those things. Physical tackling machine. 20 reps of 225, again, would have been one of the best at the combine had he been there. 140 tackles for Clayton Fejedelem, and I think this is a guy that runs around the field, makes some plays, gets guys, most important, just get guys on the ground. And to me, I love guys that can make plays on the football and do all of those things, but above all else, as a safety, you're called a safety for a reason. You're the last line of defense. There's nobody behind you. If you don't get a guy on the ground, a lot of times, 9 times out of 10, it's a touchdown. So just get guys on the ground, and Clayton Fejedelem does that at the safety position. He's got a gritty toughness about him that I really like. That again, it's one of these things you can't measure, and I'm a huge can't measure guy. You know what I mean? There's just certain things you can't see it, or just with a guy just looking at him from the outside, just with the eyeball test. It's just certain things you can't see till you sit down, talk to a guy, see what his experience are in life, and talk to him. And this guy went to, came from the NAIA conference, and from there he said, you know what, I can do better than this. He leaves, he goes to Illinois, walks on to the campus, and ends up being the starting safety for them, and makes a huge, tremendous leap from junior to senior year, where this guy was one of the best players at the safety position in the entire Big Ten. So this guy was awesome for them last year, and I think that there's a toughness there and an edge to a guy saying, you know what, I'm gonna walk on to your campus, and then I'm gonna end up being a starter, and I'm gonna end up getting me a scholarship before it's all said and done. And that's essentially what Clayton Fejedelem did in his time at Illinois. Albeit short and brief, this guy was very impactful while he was there. You go to his cons, poor pursuit angles, and I talk about guys taking bad angles. He can somewhat get away with it sometimes because I talked about the explosiveness in that 4.53, but still, a safety position, more so than linebackers, you can't afford to take poor angles, because if you take poor angles, it's usually off to the races. If a linebacker takes poor angles, at least the safety or the corner will be there to clean up his mess. When a safety takes a poor angle, it usually means a 27-yard run just turned into a 77-yard run for a touchdown. It can be that catastrophic. He has to take much better angles. I saw him take way too many. It really thoroughly annoyed me to no end, watching him take poor angle after poor angle after poor angle. And don't get me wrong, it's not like this guy took poor angle on every single snap, but there were too many of them. At least enough of them to really make me say, man, this guy is killing me here with these poor angles. Need better coverage awareness. Again, I'm nitpicking, but at the same time, I need you to be smarter. And again, this is a guy that, he's still raw. There's still a lot for him to learn at the safety position, I believe. So I'll give you an example. They're playing against, I don't remember if it was the Purdue game, or was it Iowa, or was it Ohio State? Either way, Penn State, one of these games I'm watching. And it's a one-man show to his side. So what I mean by that is it's only one receiver running a route on that side of the field. It's a one route concept on that side. There's no tight end leaking out. There's no other receiver. There's no combination route. It's just one receiver and a tight end. Tight end stays in the block. He's kind of up towards the line of scrimmage. So it's a one-man show on your side. You got to identify that. If you're Clayton Fejedelem and you're about 10 yards off the ball and you see that tight end staying in for protection and it's a one-man show to your side, go help your cornerback out. Go help him. Don't let this guy run by your corner and you sitting here standing at the line of scrimmage allowing your corner to get beat for a 55-yard touchdown. Why? It's a one-man show to your side. Go help him. And so that's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about. He didn't have great awareness. I saw him bite on a play action fake, allow a tight end to walk in the end zone for about a 22-yard touchdown. His responsibility. I need better coverage awareness out of Clayton Fejedelem, and you just don't get that from him. I don't think he has a good natural feel out, even though he's got all the intangibles. Again, this is where coaching is going to be paramount with this guy, because I think there's some talent here, there's some things you can tap into. He just needs to be coached up properly. Too reactionary. I think a lot of times with him, if he sees run, his first instinct is to run where the ball carrier is and not where they're going. Talked about him taking poor angles. That's a reactionary thing. You see it, you want to get there as fast as possible. How about you take a proper angle? You'll get there even better. I'm looking for more accuracy here. And he's a guy that doesn't always take the most efficient routes. He's reactionary. Instead of him driving on a football to pick it off, that route's going to come in front of him. He's got to actually see it, then he drives on it. He may break it up. Most likely that guy's going to catch the football, get an 8-yard gain, and make it 2nd and 2. And that's what I'm talking about, reactionary. Be more proactive. Go make a play. You just don't get that from him, especially when in coverage. So that's Clayton Fejedelem in a nutshell. I think that this guy has so many things that are intangibles and things that you can't coach. From a height, weight, speed perspective, from that toughness and that grittiness I talked about, the ability to get guys on the ground. I like his mindset. I like his athleticism. And I look at the safety position in Cincinnati and I say to myself, there's not a lot of depth there. I mean, you just re-signed George Iloka. You just re-signed Sean Williams. But I look behind them and I say, all right, you got Darren Smith, 2 years ago out of Fresno State? After that, are you trying to tell me Taylor Mays back for the 19th time in Cincinnati is the answer as a guy for depth? I don't think so. So I look at Clayton Fejedelem and I said, look, dude, if you can come in, show these guys that you can play specials and give them enough reason to want to keep you and hold you around because they see the athleticism and they see some of the things and the traits and the qualities that you possess that you may be able to help down the road, you can make this roster as a 7th round pick because I don't think there's a lot of depth at safety right now. So I look at Clayton Fejedelem in the 7th round, 245th pick, and I say, you're a double, dude, and you can make this team, okay? Go out, ball on specials, give yourself a shot, and see where the chips may fall. But I think he's got a legitimate shot of not only cracking this roster, but actually having an impact down the road for this Cincinnati Bengals football team. So that's the Bengals draft in a nutshell. Let's quickly run through their picks and their grade. 1st round, home run for William Jackson III. 2nd round, triple for Tyler Boyd. 3rd round, double for Nate Vigil, linebacker out of Utah State. 4th round, you got a home run for Andrew Billings. I don't understand how top Billings was even there in the 4th round. 5th round, Christian Westerman, guard out of Arizona State, is another double. 6th round, Cody Core, Coco, double wide receiver out of Ole Miss, and you round out your draft in the 7th round with Clayton Fejedelem, safety out of Illinois, another double. So you go to the scoreboard, 2 home runs, a triple, and then 4 doubles, which nets you 2 doubles bonuses, which gives you a grand total of 23. You divide by the 7 selections made by the Bengals in this draft, and it's a 3.29 triple. Really good draft. This is what they do, man. These are professionals here in Cincinnati. They do this every year. They get it right every year. Look, I told you already, I don't worry about these guys this time of the year, man. These dudes, they know how to do it, and they know how to do it well in Cincinnati. That's going to do it for the Cincinnati Bengals in their 2016 NFL Draft. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here in the lab room. Come back and join me as I continue to break down anything and everything National Football League. I got more drafts to break down, man. So let me ask you this. Who's next? There's plenty more where that came from. While you're here, subscribe to the channel. If you want more Louie T, be sure to follow me on Twitter at In the Lab Room, or you can like the Facebook page at In the Lab Room. That's In the Lab Room on Facebook and at In the Lab Room on Twitter. Don't forget, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so.